A man takes on a survival challenge alone on a deserted island. In the previous episode, we followed him through the early days, surviving on fish and sea crabs. Will he be able to fulfill his dream of tasting the ultimate seafood, the legendary giant lobster? Today, let's continue following his survival journey. About 20 minutes later, the crabs are fully cooked. Tommy lifts one out, larger than his fist. The crabs and snails are done, but the fish still need more time on the grill. When he begins enjoying his dinner, Tommy starts with a sea snail about the size of his fist. Although it looks large, there's not much meat inside. In return, the texture is crisp, and the sweetness is quite pleasant. After finishing the appetizer, he moves on to the two large crabs. The crab meat is not especially abundant. The crab legs, in particular, are packed with meat, making it hard for him to stop eating. While he is eating the crabs, the grilled fish reach the perfect doneness. After finishing the crabs, Tommy finally starts eating the grilled fish. Although the skin is slightly charred, the meat inside remains thick and tender, completely unaffected. With just 2 grilled fish and 1 crab, he is already completely full, and the rest is saved for a late-night meal. Having been stranded on the deserted island for less than 2 days, Tommy has truly entered a state of seafood freedom. After cracking open the snail shell, Tommy is surprised to discover a strange green substance near the tail section. He tastes it to check, but immediately realizes it was a mistake. The unpleasant flavor nearly makes him vomit the dinner he has just eaten. Not letting a small incident affect his mood, Tommy builds another fire by the beach. Tonight, he plans to continue hunting for seafood. As the fire-making process is the same as yesterday, quick and familiar, he brings the remaining grilled fish and crabs to the shore, eating while watching the sunset. For Tommy, eating by the sea is always the most enjoyable moment of the day. When night fully falls, he continues exploring the island. A black jar of unknown origin suddenly catches his attention. At first, Tommy even thinks it is an old coconut shell. He then takes his fishing spear and heads toward the rocky reef area, where there are many sea snails. Although they are not large, the sheer quantity is enough to fill his stomach. In just a short while, Tommy collects several kilograms of snails. A peaceful day passes by in the midst of seafood hunting. On the 3rd day, early in the morning, Tommy already plans a bold challenge: shark fishing. Being able to eat shark while surviving on a deserted island is truly a rare sight. In the waters around this island, the most commonly seen species are great white sharks and tiger sharks. Tommy moves out to a rocky outcrop that extends straight into the sea, where the water is deep and sharks often come to feed. He casts his line repeatedly, but no fish bite. Even after waiting patiently for some time, the result does not improve. Tommy tries switching to a more brightly colored lure, but the situation remains unchanged. Realizing that fishing is unlikely to succeed today, Tommy decides to return and scout the island instead. With the resources he already has, simply collecting shells and snails would be enough to survive for a very long time. While moving across the rocky reef, soon he picks up a freshly molted spider crab, a species commonly found in this area. On the distant horizon, dark clouds begin to gather thickly, signaling that a heavy rainstorm is approaching. Sensing the unfavorable conditions, Tommy quickly returns to camp. Moving across the rocky reef is extremely dangerous. One careless step could send him slipping into sharp rock crevices. Just as Tommy arrives back at camp, the rain starts to pour down. On a deserted island, fresh water is the most precious resource, even more important than food. Taking advantage of the heavy rain, he quickly uses every container he has to collect rainwater. The strange suitcase he brought at the beginning of the journey now proves to be an extremely effective water reservoir. Rainwater from the roof of the shelter is directed downward, and Tommy gathers it all into the suitcase for storage. In addition, a large amount of water pools on top of the shelter. He uses plastic bottles to collect more, and although some waste is unavoidable, the amount gathered is still enough for a full day of survival. After that, all the rainwater is filtered through a water filter and poured into plastic bottles for later use. In island survival, what Tommy enjoys most is rainfall. Although the rain makes his body cold, the benefits are immense. The island where he is staying has a hot and humid climate, and after each dive to catch fish, his skin often feels uncomfortable due to seawater salt and sand clogging his pores. Taking the opportunity, Tommy also bathes directly in the rain. This heavy downpour allows him to store enough water to last 3 to 4 days. At this point, he has fire and no shortage of water. The only remaining concern is food. Therefore, Immediately after the rain, Tommy dives back into the sea. After the rain, the seawater becomes murky as sand, and marine organisms are stirred up, making many fish and shrimp easier to spot. Under the rocky reefs, large lobsters and crabs are often found. Tommy catches a large fish hiding beneath a rock, the biggest fish he has caught since beginning his survival on the deserted island. Not long after, he picks up another sea snail. However, having eaten snails continuously for 2 days, Tommy decides to skip it and continue searching. Suddenly, a long antenna protruding from a rock crevice catches his attention. Beneath this reef rock, a giant lobster is hiding. The lobster crawls closer to the entrance of its den on its own, showing an opportunity too clear to ignore. Tommy immediately thrusts his fishing spear, strikes true, and successfully pulls the lobster out. For the first time in his survival journey, he has caught such a large lobster, and the excitement is clearly written all over his face. After many days of eating grilled fish, Tommy can finally enjoy a hearty lobster feast. This lobster is enormous, weighing several kilograms. Just this one alone is enough to fill him for an entire meal. Tommy holds up his prize proudly in front of the camera. At this moment, fish or sea snails have become mere appetizers to him. Only lobster truly deserves to be called the ultimate deserted island feast. After catching the giant lobster, Tommy continues diving to explore the surrounding area. A large fish appears in front of him, but unfortunately, the distance is too great for his spear to reach. While moving along, Tommy unexpectedly picks up a gigantic sea snail shell that has long been dead, leaving only an empty shell behind. It is hard to imagine just how massive this creature must have been when it was alive. Even so, today's harvest is still more than impressive. A rock lobster weighing several kilograms along with a large sea fish is more than enough for dinner. This lobster is even bigger than Tommy's head. If the antennae are included, its length reaches nearly 50 centimeters. Just eating one alone is enough to leave him completely full. Just when it seems that this is already surprising enough, when Tommy amazes viewers even more by taking out a metal detector, an item he brought specifically for exploring deserted islands. It may sound strange, but for someone who frequently gets stranded on remote islands, carrying such a device actually makes perfect sense. Tommy walks around the island with the metal detector, searching carefully. Ever since he picked up the old glass bottle fused to the rocks, he has clearly become more attentive to traces of past human activity. No wonder that every time he survives on a deserted island, Tommy manages to collect quite a few treasures. Today, he discovers yet another one, a small metal lid buried deep in the sand. After finishing the exploration, Tommy returns to camp to prepare dinner. Today's lobster is a rock lobster. Although its patterns and colors are not as striking as those of a spiny lobster, the taste and quality are almost no different. In a deserted island survival situation, simply having lobster to eat is already an extreme luxury. As evening falls, Tommy builds another large fire on the beach. He has grown accustomed to eating dinner while watching the sunset, a romantic habit amid harsh survival conditions. Tonight, the lobster is boiled directly in seawater. Seafood cooked in seawater always retains its natural sweetness, becoming richer in flavor with every bite. When the water in the iron pot comes to a boil, Tommy puts the lobster in. The lobster is so large that even in the pot, half of its head is still sticking out. While waiting for it to cook, he prepares the sea fish caught earlier that day. We're slicing several cuts along its body so it will cook faster when grilled. After that, Tommy throws the fish directly onto the fire to grill. With high-quality ingredients, the simpler the cooking method, the better the flavor is preserved. The fish skin quickly becomes charred on the outside. He then threads the fish onto a wooden stick to continue grilling, street stall style, quick, efficient, and unpretentious. Before the lobster in the pot even has time to fully turn red, Tommy can no longer wait. He continues cooking the head in the iron pot, but because the fire is not strong enough, the process looks somewhat like a waste of such fine ingredients. After about half an hour of boiling and grilling, both the lobster and the fish are basically cooked. Tommy lifts the lobster weighing several kilograms to inspect it. Although the shell has not turned a bright red, hunger prevents him from waiting any longer. He peels off the tail, takes a deep sip of the sweet juice inside, then continues to break apart the head, splashing liquid everywhere. He grabs the lobster claws and sucks every strand of meat clean, not even leaving out the meat inside the antennae. Tommy's hunger is now clearly evident. When he reaches the lobster tail, he uses pliers to cut through the hard shell, revealing thick, white meat inside. Every bite makes him sigh with satisfaction at how delicious it is. This giant lobster truly delivers an absolute sense of fulfillment. In just 3 days on the deserted island, Tommy has eaten fish, crabs, snails, and now even lobster. A wonderful day of survival comes to an end with a hearty dinner by the seaside. On the following day, Tommy decides to change his strategy. Instead of continuing to dive deep in search of food, he begins setting lobster traps around the rocky reefs near the shore. This area is where currents carry many small creatures, making it an ideal place to lure large lobsters out to feed. Tommy uses leftover fish scraps from the previous day as bait, unties them securely to the traps, and lowers them into familiar rock crevices. While waiting for the traps to work, he continues fishing. The fishing line jerks violently, far more than before. Tommy has to use all his strength to hold the rod, gradually pulling the fish out of the water. When it finally surfaces, the size of the fish leaves him stunned. He estimates it to weigh around 5 to 6 kilograms, the largest fish he has caught throughout this entire survival journey. After an intense struggle, Tommy finally drags the fish onto the shore. At this size, just one fish is enough to sustain him for many days. In the afternoon, Tommy returns to camp to pack up his belongings. The days of survival on the deserted island have given him not only food, but also a deep connection with nature. Small skills such as making fire, finding fresh water, and diving to catch seafood all become more refined with each passing day. The final meal on the island is prepared simply yet sufficiently. The large fish is grilled directly over glowing embers. He uses no elaborate seasonings, choosing instead to fully enjoy the pure, natural flavors of the ocean. As the sun slowly sinks below the horizon, Tommy sits alone on the beach, eating dinner while watching the sunset paint the sea red. The scene is strangely peaceful, in stark contrast to the harsh challenges he has endured over the past few days. At the end of the survival journey, Tommy reflects on what he has achieved. Enough food, enough skills,